Hello, everyone. This is Brenda Rogers, and this morning I am with Stasha Washburn, who is a period coach and something I find absolutely fascinating. So, we're delving in this morning to understand a little bit more about how she works and how it may be of benefit to you. So, welcome, Stasha.
Thank you so much for having me, Brenda. This is great.
Now, you are a period coach. You're the founder of the Period Coaching School. You're the author of The Revolution Will Be Bloody. Anything else you'd like to add to that list of achievements?
Digital nomad who just really needs tea and Wi-Fi to survive.
So where are you currently located?
I'm currently in Florida in the US. I came out here actually kind of mid-pandemic to help my parents out. And I've been coming back to help out and take care of things. And now they're actually off visiting some family because now everyone's vaccinated and they can finally see the great grandkids and that kind of thing. So they're taking a short tour in the middle of hurricane season. So I'm here to make sure that the house doesn't get blown away, or if it does, the important stuff gets out.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, well, let's deep dive in. I've got a question for you. What does period awareness give women that they didn't even know that they were missing?
Oh my God, I love that question. No one ever asks me that. I love it. So period awareness. Yeah, knowing your cycle. I think something that we may be aware of a little bit is that, some days we feel really good and the next day we feel like crap, or we had this really great idea, but then a week later it seems like a terrible idea. A lot of these kind of feeling good and then not feeling so good and not knowing why. And that cycle awareness is why. And it's not that you don't feel good. It's just that those hormones have shifted and you're better at other stuff now. But it's not really stuff that society wants you to be doing. It's not like running a mile faster. It's not making more money. It's not, out there being a, huge rabble rouser or whatever. It's the inner work. It's the visionary work. It's the creative time. It's the organizing and reflecting and renewing time. Wow. And it's really the most essential stuff for having a productive business. Reviewing, reflecting, seeing where you're at, seeing where to go next, making sure it's in alignment with your vision, with what you want to achieve with the world, the goals that you've set. So it's all of this stuff that doesn't happen naturally or doesn't get rewarded. So we think, oh, well, I'm just crap right now because I am not doing this other stuff. When in reality, you've just shifted. And I think that's one of the most incredible. You can take so much weight off of your shoulders. You can take so much blame and why am I suck today? What's wrong with me? And you can just go, oh, nothing's wrong with me. I just, I am going to be a little clumsy right now. It's okay. It'll pass in 3 days. We're fine.
So it sounds like you're referring to phases, and my understanding is that and this may be you may be even able to refine this understanding, but my understanding is that there's four weeks in the cycle and at least 4 phases, and then each week has these unique qualities about them. That's what you're referring to. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we don't, and it relates to this 4 weekly renewal.
Basically. Yeah, the hormone shift. And what we don't realize is that our menstrual cycle is not just having a period and then not having a period. And we kind of have this idea that the hormones just sort of, surge before your period or drop before your period. And then you have your period and then everything goes back to normal. And then nothing changes again until you have your period, which is not at all what's happening internally. your estrogen is rising, your testosterone is rising, your estrogen is decreasing, but your progesterone is increasing, but then your estrogen increases again. It's a whole drama unfolding that, if it's done well, it looks like a beautiful year. You go through fall and spring and summer and all of the seasons, and it's a beautiful thing. If it's out of balance, it's a bit like, there's a blizzard that's buried you in the winter and you've lost power and you're freezing, and now it's the middle of summer and it's 60 degrees Celsius or something insane, and everyone's on fire, and it's not that beautiful ebb and flow. Instead, it's disaster after disaster. So we wanted to bring things into balance and enjoy the up and the down, and knowing that down doesn't equal weakness or negativity. It's just a different set of strengths. Yeah.
Sounds a bit like we're talking about the sort of male and female values as well, which we might touch on. So, if someone, I've heard of words like, ancient women's mysteries and blood mysteries, and which sounds kind of, a long way in the past. How could you describe this menstrual awareness in modern language? I know you're talking about business flow, and some of our audience may be in business, they may be in corporate jobs, they may be mums, they may be perimenopausal, they may be postmenopausal, no period anymore. So can you, I know you've just talked a little bit about it, but what are we actually talking about here? This is Secret Women's Business. What is it that we're actually talking about? Does that question make sense?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I wish it wasn't Secret Women's Business. I think this was just something that we all understood, used, enjoyed, found relief in. And I know lots of couples who they're, heteronormative couples where the husband often feels a lot of relief that goes along with understanding his partner's cycle. And he gets time too, where he gets to go, oh, you're in that deep luteal phase. We get to just chill and cuddle on the couch. Sweet. Like they also get to enjoy that putting down of the pressure and just kind of enjoying in that beingness of it. And yeah, it doesn't matter if you're cycling or not. There's equivalence. So we'll talk about things from the perspective of the new moon equals winter equals menstruation. The full moon equals summer equals ovulation. And so, you go from menstrual to follicular springtime to summer ovulation, full moon to through the luteal phase, that late summer, autumn, moving into that winter phase and that new moon. So there's kind of the external cycle of the moon cycles, which I think everybody is attuned to, whether conscious or not. And I say that as a bartender in New York City for 10 years. I knew to have an extra bar back or bouncer around the full moon. And I knew to cut people early around the new moon because we just weren't going to have as many bodies in there. But around the full moon, we were going to have a bunch of fights or other things that start with F and lead to less clothing. So I knew something, people had this excess energy, and because they aren't conscious of it, they don't know what to do with it. So they go out and get into trouble and cause mayhem. But if we knew, we could really be using that energy in like constructive, amazing, creative ways, which is why I would like everyone to have this knowledge, because as a humanity, we would just do better if we all were able to be a little bit more conscious of that. But then we have the internal cycles as menstruators, or anyone who has a menstrual cycle moving in them. And you may have to do a little extra charting to realize, okay, this is what this phase feels like for me. And this is how the moon can kind of affect that in certain ways. I know for myself personally, if I'm in my menstrual phase and it's a full moon, I will have more chatter in my head. Ideas, things that are left undone, just sort of like the monkey mind is more active because of the full moon, but I'm in menstrual and I have endometriosis, which means I'm basically in bed, just taking care of myself. So my body is like, I'm done, but my brain is like, I have 8 million things to do right now. And I have to just go, how do I set myself up to not make myself crazy in this? Because that's what used to happen. I just felt crazy. But now I kind of go, oh, all right, I get it. I'll just get a notepad out and I'll keep it next to me. And then I can go sort it in a few days and deal with it then.
It's so honoring. It sounds so honoring.
Yeah.
Now, I've learned that, and I'm not sure if this is a myth, Stasha, that when we were less exposed to artificial light, pretty much all women menstruated with the new moon and ovulated with the full moon. Is that accurate?
That's what the oral histories tell us. So women were not usually allowed to read and write. There's a kind of a saying, women's history is oral history, male history is written history. So we kind of hand things down through word of mouth and talking to each other, which makes a lot of sense in that our stress response, our stress hormones actually decrease when we're in community with other women and chatting and working out things. So it makes a lot of sense that we have that oral tradition. So there's not a ton of information that one could point to and go, oh yes, this was written here. But it does seem that way. You hear there's stories that have been handed down that talk about the wise woman of the community being the woman who didn't menstruate on the new moon. She menstruated on the full moon. And so that implies everyone else was menstruating on the new moon because the one kind of medicine woman of that community had sort of a flipped cycle. So there's bits and pieces of these stories that you can kind of put together, and it does seem like it really works. And I know I've worked with clients and myself in bringing some balance into the cycle by sleeping with the moon phases. So artificially being in pitch darkness until around the full moon, and then including light into the sleeping room. And it has, as much as there's no like scientific studies on it, for clients and myself, it brought some regularity to irregular cycles. And it seemed to make a great improvement on just being able to understand your cycle and get some regularity and start to feel a little bit more confident with it. So anecdotal, I know, but a lot of that in this industry is, and it's, it's one of those things like it can't hurt you. So why not give it a try and see if it helps? There's no side effects. So see if it helps, see if it makes it feel a little bit more regular. And, if it does, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay. No harm, no foul.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh, it brings up like 1,000 questions for me. There's so many things I'm fascinated about. Let me just ask you my next question though. What led you to want to teach this wisdom?
I was really very angry. And I needed to do something about it. I spent my teens and my 20s and a portion of my 30s having really, really bad periods. And I mean, spending a couple of days before my period being completely just so deeply fatigued that, people would be talking to me and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I hear you. I can't seem to process what you're saying for some reason. And asleep, just sleeping for just all day and, waking up to eat and then going back to sleep and then getting cramps and it being worse and the pain increasing and the pain increasing. And then I would pass out. Then I would get my period. And then the pain would be so bad when I got my period. I would just spend 2-3 days in the bathtub, throwing up, bathtub, nap on the floor of the bathroom, throw up, like just days and then recover. Right. So that's a good 2 weeks of just sort of not being a functional human being. And all of these people are telling me, well, it's extreme, but that's just having a period. And I refuse to believe that. And I spent a lot of time working with a lot of different modalities and a lot of reading a lot of books and trying to figure out what was going on and why this was happening and what was happening. And, I had doctors who would straight up say, you don't have endometriosis. It can't happen as a teen. It has to take years to develop. So it can't be that. Now we know that's not true. But, and it's not like that was one of the things out there. But at the same time, I've talked to people who had doctors who were saying the absolute opposite. So like the doctors didn't know what the heck, so everyone's just kind of going, well, deal with it. And I'm going, I don't think you understand how bad the pain is. And now I know women with endometriosis, there are women who don't go to the emergency room because their appendix bursts or they're having a heart attack and they go, it's not nearly as bad as my cramps.
Oh, wow.
That's a problem. And the NHS just did recently say it is one of the most painful conditions in the world. So but it's just your period. It's just normal. Just go deal with it, child. Like, okay, 16-year-old, like live with it. So I was just very angry, and I was getting my health coaching certification and I was a dancer. So I thought I'd work with athletes, but all my athletes had period problems and I was able to help them. And I thought, oh my God, if I can help other people not go through any of the suffering I went through and validate that they are in fact going through something that is not normal. It's not supposed to be like that, whether it's PMDD and being really depressed or really bad perimenopause or really, any of it. No, it's not normal. It might be common, but it's not normal and it's not how it should be. And that just anger of being so gaslit and lied to and no one caring enough to really even go, maybe we should see if we can get some studies done about that. It just made me so angry that I thought, you know what, my mission on life, if I do nothing else, is to share to as many human beings as possible that periods are not supposed to be bad. They're not supposed to be an inconvenience. They're not supposed to be a trauma. They're supposed to be fantastic. They're supposed to be a guide. They're supposed to help. And if I can just get that message out there, I'll feel like I've done something of worth,
Fantastic. It's amazing. And I can hear your passion and, that your periods being a guide, to me, that's the essence of it. That we have this inner wisdom that we haven't been accessing and it can guide us to joy and pleasure and freedom and all that kind of thing. But so just as an aside though, I don't imagine that when you first started that was, a period coach. How's it gone? How I know that you're doing very well now. I'm really proud of you as another woman, and I'm so excited to be sharing your knowledge with other women as well, my crowd too. But how's the journey gone in terms of getting that to work?
It was definitely a struggle. I mean, when I started doing it, there weren't names. There was no like period coach, there weren't even hormonal balance coaches. It just, it was like, there were health coaches that specialized in infertility. There was certainly fertility stuff that existed, but I had no interest in doing infertility stuff. That wasn't, to me, that didn't do anything to end the taboo around menstruation. It didn't do anything to help get research funded. It didn't help, it's not helping people in pain and crisis, in turmoil or trauma. So, so it was a little awkward to start because people want to talk about it, but they don't want to talk about it where any of their friends can overhear or see or understand. I got a lot of private questions and private interest in things. And it took a while for people to kind of even get the hang of it. And it was a lot of education, right? It's still a lot of education. I still have very angry people who come onto my social media and explain to me all of the reasons why this shouldn't be talked about in public forums, or get over it, it's just a period, or what are you going on about? No one needs to teach me how to have a period, but I get it. They're in trauma response. They're triggered, they're angry, they've internalized all of that hatred and misogyny, and they're taking it out on me because I'm a convenient person to do that. But it doesn't matter, because I go look at testimonials that people have shared. I look at I was going to kill myself. My PMDD was so bad. And then we work together and I feel so much better, and I'm traveling and I'm going places and I'm loving life and I don't have any of these symptoms anymore. And I think that it's a life that was saved right there. That is a beautiful, amazing soul that's still on the planet and no longer held hostage to PMDD. I don't care if that person over there is not ready to see the next step, as much as I want to save the lives or the businesses or the incomes or the relationships or the marriages or whatever, by having that knowledge out there. So it was tough, but now it's so much easier as people are starting to get the concept, and people aren't taking, we can't do anything about it for an answer so much anymore. So more women are going to the doctor and they're getting the birth control or surgery solutions that are usually the only things offered. And they're going, I just don't think that that's true. I don't think I have a birth control deficiency. I think that something is going on that can be fixed. And they're refusing to, have the surgery or go on birth control for that reason of there's got to be a better way. So now people are really actively searching out for help. And that's really encouraging to see. And that's something that I've really seen in the last couple years shifting. I think it was 2015 was declared the year of the period.
Really?
Not too long ago. I think it was maybe 17, but somewhere in our fairly recent history, they went, oh, wow, there's really a conversation going on around this. And then the rising of menstrual cups and period panties and these kinds of things have really started opening up the conversation. So it's getting a lot more interesting out there. There's so many more people to play with and have these conversations and, are bringing new ideas and things to the world. It's quite exciting, actually, to be in this place where you can see it unfolding in real time. It's rapid. It's going quickly. I'm very excited about it. It's following the same trajectory that health coaching did, where no one knew what a health coach was, but now there's an enormous industry around it. And period coaching it's just going to be life coaching, period coaching, business coaching, relationship coaching, health coaching, all big umbrellas that can work together, help each other. I'm very much looking forward to the future of it.
I am too. And look, I'll ask you a little bit about your school in a minute. I don't want to go down any rabbit holes, but just whether, I've got a question here. Is it worth asking why this wisdom's not available? Hasn't been, is that?
I think it's just a separation of our own internal knowledge. So a lot of religions around the world made it very clear that you weren't allowed to practice herbalism or midwifery or any of those kind of healing things for women. It was considered witchcraft or some other derivation, depending on where you are in the world. And the punishment for it was torture and death, and it lasted for hundreds of years. And in that time, we went from every village having a midwife or a wise woman or somebody who helped with these kinds of things, and communities that, were menstruating all at the same time on the new moon and celebrating all in all of those holidays around the full moon are because women were ovulating. All of those holidays have roots in very sexual traditions because all of the women were ovulating at the same time. So those big fire around the fire traditions were around the full moon were very good for helping the species flourish and strong and healthy, right? So we know all of that, but we lost all of that with these very patriarchal women must suffer for their original sin or whatever it is kind of things. And it just really went around the world, and generation after generation after generation of torture and death. And we lost our oral history and our oral traditions. So we're kind of uncovering some things and bringing them forward. Science is starting to do some studies and catch up. So we're filling in some gaps and seeing some things, oh, this was what my grandmother told me. And it's like, okay, well, they actually did a study on that and they showed that it actually can help. So, but you need this much of it. So I'd like to think that our past and our present is coming together. Science is helping to move things forward and get us back and connected. And then our oral traditions and those old stories are coming back, and Native communities are sharing wisdom, which they certainly don't have to, but it's helping us fill in the gaps as well. And I like to think we're going to stitch it back together as a team.
Yeah. I think so too. And it's why I've reached out to you, because I'm finding that education around, midlife hormonal changes and that, what happens to a woman, in that phase of life is very unknown as well, and a taboo subject, and starting to come out. And I think women didn't even realize they didn't even know about it. And now they're going, I don't even know about it, and starting to seek information, which I feel like I'm on a similar trajectory to you. Now, I checked out your website and theperiodcoach.com, and I loved the simple offerings that you had. So it was just a basic course, and then business in flow, which is amazing, and then your school program. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
About the school?
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, so the school actually encompasses all of that, which is kind of a nice way of doing it, because we move through the basics in the school, which from the school perspective, it's, how are you going to be working with your clients? What are some of the ways that you can have these conversations with them? What are the things that you can do with them to help them get into more balance? And, for the people in the school, they get to experiment and play themselves and try these different things. And it's all centered around bringing things that we love in flow with our cycles. So it's not about deprivation or, whipping yourself to, follow a perfect anything, frankly, but really about going, oh, I love movement. So how do I do movement in flow? Oh, all right. Oh, I see. There's times to push, there's times to repair, there's times to do the yin, there's time to do the boot camp class, like really being able to have a play with that. And that goes for all of the senses. So it's a really expansive training. And of course, the business stuff, so we can start making money without having to sacrifice our mental and emotional health to do it. Use our cycle, do what we're good at when we're good at it. And I'll give you one quick example. Verbal skills and estrogen are interlinked. So if you're running a business, you need verbal skills. And if you're doing those tasks when your estrogen is at its peak, then it's going to be a lot easier than if you're trying to do it when your estrogen is at its valley. And then you're trying to, record a video or something when you have very little estrogen moving around and you feel like you're fumbling for words. So we basically batch our business with our cycles and plan and do all that stuff together. And then, of course, there's the period coaching element, where we do talk about all of those things that go wrong with periods. And we talk about peri-menopause, and we talk about how to move through all of these things powerfully, how we can help our clients, what we should have our clients be talking to their doctors about. Like, I'm a big fan of doing it as a team. Have your client's doctor, their naturopath, their acupuncturist, everybody on board. Like, at the end of the day, the coaches are the boots on the ground. We're the ones that are going to actually make that change for our clients, the shift in the eating, the shift in the movement, the shift in the lifestyle, whatever it is. So having our health team for our clients as allies. So we talk about that, and and advocating for yourself with your doctors, those kinds of things. So
Mm.
I really try to bring in guest teachers that are experts in their fields for all these different things. You know, I teach the endometriosis module for obvious reasons, but I didn't teach the fertility module. I don't know. I've never wanted to get pregnant. So no, I don't know. I never worked with people trying to get pregnant. That's not my area of expertise, or not get pregnant for that matter. So, yeah, so I bring in the people who are really good at what they do, and the school community, and gets to enjoy that and learn all of that. And then of course, practice with their clients, bring questions, those kinds of things. It's a nice safe place to learn, to start practicing, to get helpful feedback and that kind of thing. So it's a good community. And I like to think that it really sets you up with not just the woo of it, where you're talking like the energy work and the seasons and the emotional work, but we also talk about the science of it. What do we know? What do we have the studies on? What have we learned? What works? What doesn't learn? And then we talk about the in-between. Like, these are the things that I've seen work in clients. No, I don't have a supporting study for it, but I have seen it help. There's no side effects. Give it a try, you know? So it's, I think it's a nice blend of science and woo, and we really can move through powerfully in helping our clients, helping ourselves, keeping our businesses from becoming train wrecks, you know? So yeah, it's a good course. It's a good program. And so even if you are a coach, no matter what your modality is, if you're working with clients who have menstrual cycles, it's going to be really helpful information for working with them. So you're not pushing them further out of balance, which is so easy to do, but actually helping them come into balance. I mean, business coach, relationship coach, health coach, doesn't really matter. Or if you want to become a period coach and really just niche in, and, you know, maybe I want to work with PMDD clients, or, you know, I have Lyme disease and endo. I want to work with clients who got that double whammy, or, you know, whatever it is for people. But you can really business and flow, right? One of our graduates does launching with flow. That, and she's got a podcast. It's excellent. Go have a listen. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate it into an already existing business, or become a period coach yourself. And it's like I said, it's a rapidly going industry. So it's going to be, you know, the people who are out there doing it now, they're going to be in a really good place in a few years when it gets really big.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that. And I'll ask you about your contact details in a minute, but I've got one last question that came up with what you were just talking about, and that is losing your words when estrogen is low. And of course, peri-menopause is, you know, the gradual reduction of estrogen, amongst others, and then you know, in a way, it valleys out, or it bottoms out at menopause, when the ovaries shut down. So you know, I haven't seen any studies on this either, but my intuition is, and we know that the brain is rewiring. We also know that it's going from less glucose driven to more ketone driven. From the woo perspective, though, is the brain rewiring, in your opinion, for a different kind of wisdom, a different kind of intelligence, a different kind of brain functioning? So the memory is not so great in terms of facts and figures, left brain stuff, but more has a different kind of memory. Is that something you've explored?
I think so. I read a study maybe a year ago that they had done on mice. So it hasn't been tested in humans yet, but they were so shocked by the outcome. They did it twice because they didn't think that they could have possibly gotten the result they got. So what they did is they split up these mice into different categories. Ones that had fully intact reproductive systems, ones that had had their ovaries removed, ones that had had their uterus removed, and I think one that had both. But what they realized was that the mice that had their uterus removed had a significant reduction in memory recall. they would just get lost in the maze that they knew perfectly fine and aced over and over and over again pre-surgery. They couldn't get through post-surgery. How the uterus is related. And this is why they were so shocked, because they thought there's no way that the uterus could have some effect on memory. So they scrapped the whole study and started from scratch and did it again and got the exact same result.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. You're right. Who knows? Because this is a study that the scientists were like, holy, did not see that coming. But there it is. So what's the shift? How does it work? Don't know, but clearly it's there. Clearly it's an anchor in some way. So how do we move forward with that information? I don't know, but it's definitely different. I've always said, I think periods or menstrual cycles are training wheels for becoming a wise woman.
Yeah.
It's a physical shifting through those seasons and learning to live in that larger perspective, a month cycle, not a day, and seeing the bigger picture and tuning in and tapping into it and having rest and having due time and productivity time. And I've always thought, the menstrual cycle is just training wheels for doing this. And our wise women are the guides for the non-cycling people that are in the community, because they've learned so well through their menstrual cycles how to live in harmony in those larger cycles, that they're likely the guides for the men, the children, the non-menstruators for whatever reason in the community. And we've lost that because we've lost that reverence for our wise women. We've lost that respect of our elder community and the knowledge that they have. And our elder community has lost their abilities to have those conversations because they don't want to listen to the kids these days, So it's certainly, that separation really did quite a number on us as human beings. Like, we really just got so separated from so much. But I think if we came back and put in that respect and appreciation for those cycles, for menstrual cycles and moon cycles, and lived with them, even if you are past menstruation now, if you're in menopause, just tapping into the moon cycles and charting, just as if you were in menstruation, and using day one as the new moon and doing a moon cycle as a chart every month, and seeing how it affects your energy and your moods and your digestion, your sleep cycles, all those things. I think you would walk away. Well, I know you would walk away, because I've done this with postmenopausal clients. We have postmenopausal students that start charting and do all this stuff in the community. And in fact, this last year, an practicing OBGYN who was in the school, who is in menopause, started charting with everybody else, doing the Flow Freedom program and learning with everybody else. And she was blown away by how much she didn't notice things changing, how her energy changed, how things moved throughout the month. And that now that she'd started charting and she was seeing these things, she was like, oh my God, I had no idea. This is so valuable to me. And so I've learned so much through this process about myself. So, if a practicing OBGYN in menopause can come out with some mind-blowing epiphanies from doing it, then I really think anybody can.
Yes. And, I love that tip for our listeners to get the moon charts out. And there's I'm sure they're all over the internet. I've got a dozen in my files as well. And I know you have one as well. So thank you for that tip. That's a nice takeaway for everyone. So let's finish with how people reach out to you, how people can contact you.
Yeah, so you're absolutely welcome to go to theperiodcoach.com, where my book and the Flow Freedom, which is open to anybody program, nice 2-month program that will get you in sync and understanding your cycle, live. And there's also a link to the school, but you can also go to periodcoachingschool.com, where the school lives. And that's where you can find out more about the school. There's a Become a Coach tab. We're starting to populate the website with Find a Coach. So if you feel like you might need a coach, we're starting to put the graduates up on there so you can start finding coaches from there. And yeah, find out more about the school. And if it's right for you, you can always, jump on and have a conversation with me and just make sure it's a good fit. And if it's right for you, and yeah, jump in and get your period coaching certification and get started.
And of course, it's suitable because we're in Australia, obviously. So suitable for us Aussies, in case anyone's wondering.
Suitable for anyone in any time zone, because we already have people for this year in the US, Europe. We've got, I think, one UK and maybe one other one there. And then we've got Malaysia, we've got Eastern Australia. So we've got pretty much like all of the time zones right now. So we've got calls where everyone will be awake. So we've got, they're scattered. So everyone will have a choice where they can show up, and it'll be, there'll be times when you're asleep, and there'll be times when you're awake, and you can just jump in on the awake times. Totally.
Thank you. And just finally, the deadline. So when's the new program, the new intake commence?
Yeah. So we open the doors on Monday, and we will keep them open until the 23rd, or classes are full, whichever comes first. And then we start with our welcome call on the 25th of August.
Wow.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah. It's very exciting.
All right. Well, thank you, Stasha. Sister. I think we're in this journey together, and this reawakening, this reparation, this reconnecting, healing the separation wound together. And I feel very blessed to have had your time this morning. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fantastic, and seriously, great questions.
Thank you. All right.